Thank you, David. Thank you to KFRU, and thank you to the library and to the League of Women Voters. And I'm getting over a cold, so I apologize if I cough through this, but I'm trying to see how far I can get. So I am quite honored to serve in the Missouri Legislature, and I've been appointed by the Speaker to serve on 6 committees, one of which is Budget, also the subcommittee off of Budget on Appropriations for Public Safety, Corrections, Transportation, and Revenue, and then also on the Joint Committee for Child Abuse, Neglect, Pension, Special Committee on Employment Security, and the Special Committee to Improve the Care and Well-Being of Young People. So a lot of family and children-oriented committees. Bills that I've sponsored this session include, I'm going to just kind of focus on a couple of them here. One of them, House Bill 1377, it extends the expiration date of the Champion for Children tax credit. So as you know, periodically, any of our bills that have sunsets in them, they need to be renewed. And what this bill does, and we've got some individuals in the crowd that are volunteers for CASA and other organizations that help people, children that are in situations of abuse and neglect, and that help those kids, child centers and things like that. And so this is extending that tax credit. It got bundled in with some other tax credit bills, and we heard that on the House floor, and it's making its way through the process. So quite honored to sponsor that. Also, a couple more bills, one of which essentially deals with certain public safety funds and ensuring that the Department of Public Safety has funds to be able to work internally and improve some safety programs that they're doing. And then a bill, House Bill 2426, that modifies provisions related to adoption and post-adoption contact agreements. So just in a nutshell, and I won't get into all the weeds on this, but so foster care and adoption and reforming that system, a lot of the kids are spending it's just an exorbitant amount of time, and it's very painful for them to basically go through the whole process to get placed. And as the law currently stands, parents that are birth parents that are willing to essentially terminate their parental rights and that realize that adoption is the best option, it's either an all or nothing. And so under this legislation, which is carried by Senator Sater in the Senate, it's going to be able to allow these foster children to be able, for the parents to be able to work on this adoption, post-adoption contact agreement. So essentially it's going to lay out things like a couple photos a year that the birth parent can send. So it's some contact that the birth parent's going to be able to continue to have with that child, and so keep that contact, but at the same time support an adoption of the child to the foster parents. So it's going to really help streamline that process instead of it getting tied up in the courts because the parents support adoption, but they're just still struggling with making that final commitment. And so I just filed it today, and it'll be making its way through the process, and so I'll keep you posted on that. So I've also co-sponsored some bills, and being on budget, I'll just kind of tie back to that. That's just my priority committee. As you all know, budget is very, very important. It's going to be a tight budget year. I will speak to education. So I'm a graduate of the University of Missouri, and I am deeply, deeply proud of President Moon Choi and his leadership for the University of Missouri, as well as Chancellor Alexander Cartwright. I am incredibly impressed with that. We can all talk about the controversy in the past, but it's time to move on, and they have shown leadership and hit the problem head on, said that, you know what, these were some mistakes we did in the past, but we're moving forward, we're setting the record straight, and we're going to make the University of Missouri the best that it can be. So as an alumni of the University of Missouri, I could not be prouder of my University of Missouri, and I will do all that I can to work to support it. That said, I'm not going to belabor things. There are some other bills that I've co-sponsored, a list of a number of different things which might come out, in comments as we get different comments on them. If anyone has these specific questions, they're all on the website. You can all go to house.mo.gov and you can look up your representative and see all the bills that we've sponsored and co-sponsored, and then click on those, and it shows the process, and you can follow and see what we're doing, and it's all out there transparently for you all. So it's wonderful to be here, and with that, I will turn it back over to our moderator.
What's the state's ideal level for funding higher ed? How much of the responsibility should we from the state budget? And then Representative Walsh, your thought, please.
Thank you. And I also wanted to say, for those of you that don't realize, the Senate had a filibuster that went like overnight. So it's not that Senator Rowden doesn't want to be here. It may still be going on for all that I know. So anyway, just to set that record straight. The other part that I want to talk about with this education is absolutely, I think that the budget chair is committed to doing all that we can to try to kind of reinstate that, higher education. Now, obviously, we need to look at everything. We have to have a balanced budget. We're going through the process. We're not to markup. We're not to actually where we look at those things. We're still hearing testimony from all the state agencies, and we're about halfway through, I believe. So, we're working through the process. You have, again, 2 individuals from the Mid-Missouri area, Boone County area on the budget committee, myself and Representative Kip Kendrick, and so we will be working for education. I won't speak for him, I'm sorry. I will be, but he said he will too, so we're good.
This is a general question. We've seen recently in St. Louis, or not that recently now, but there was a minimum wage bill passed, and it was repealed by the state legislature. Now, in 2018, there's many more referendums that are coming, and very well might be on the ballot, including medical marijuana. And I'm wondering all of your opinion on, is it okay for a legislator to appeal the votes of the people when they've voted on a referendum?
And Representative Walsh?
So a couple of things about that. So the initiative petition process, so essentially it's good because you can have the citizens directly, if they get enough votes, put it there. Secretary of State Jay Ashcraft testified in front of our budget committee the other day, and he held up a 45-page initiative petition, or 40, maybe it was 47, he corrected me. But anyway, it's 40-some pages, and so when individuals will stand, in front of a post office or something and collect signatures for that, I can tell you because I've witnessed it, people sometimes, they'll just sign it just to get the person to leave them alone. And so sometimes they don't read all that. So sometimes there could be an issue with that. So that there might need to be some things reformed. The minimum wage issue, and I know that's an issue. There's lots of, it's kind of controversial, lots of people on different sides, but you'll see what happens with companies. When they raise the minimum wage, it'll happen where they'll end up like McDonald's, where they'll put a kiosk there because in order to keep the dollar menu a dollar menu, they have to cut the cost somewhere, and so it usually ends up being a staff member, and it turns into a machine. So I think for us to keep more young people and having young people jobs, that we need to, again, I would not support that. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Kate. Recently, and this is more of just a yes or no question. You can't expand as you want. There's been a lot of controversy over Governor Greitens using a secret messaging app for official business. I apologize to you, Chuck, but Representative Bassey just had a public argument on his Facebook page with a person here in our districts. And the argument is becoming that social media platforms are personal and not official business, but when people can be fired in our state by their employers for what they say on their social media, shouldn't we be holding our government officials to the same standard? Do you feel that your social media platforms are personal, or are they used for government business?
Representative Walsh.
Well, again, with the governor's situation, that's under investigation, so I'm not going to speak to that either. So far as social media, I don't think the courts have decided that yet. I know, I was speaking with Missouri Ethics Association, or Missouri Ethics Commission, you don't have to put the paid for byline on it for your campaign account. It's not really decided by the courts yet. So I think, definitely all these things are good topics for us to talk about as we're in this new realm. The other thing I'll say, just to kind of put this out there, and I know another, Senator got a little bit of heat on this for putting this on their Facebook page recently, but I will say that, so I'm on 6 committees, so if you want to communicate with me, you're welcome, of course, to communicate through Facebook, but just know that when I'm in these budget committees and these different committees, I'm taking notes, and I'm not looking at my phone. So if you need something immediately, please call my office or email my state email account, and then my legislative assistants have access to that, and so they can immediately help you. So again, there might be a delay if you try to contact me through social media, and it's not because I'm ignoring anyone, it's just because I'm busy doing my job. So thank you very much.
Rogers from Columbia. In a couple of years, we'll be looking at another census and possibly another redistricting. I think it's generally accepted that the ideal districting should be compact and equally distributed in the number of voters, and some allowance should be made for natural formations like rivers and county lines. Are there any other factors that you think are appropriate to use in redrawing districts besides what I just mentioned?
And this is to everybody. You want everybody to respond? Yeah. Chuck Vasey, you're up first.
Sir, could you say it one more time, please? I'm just real quick, the question.
When it comes to redistricting, we're shooting for the most compact districts with an equal balance of voters in each district, and we make allowance for factors such as geological factors like rivers, or factors like county lines. Are there any other factors that you think are appropriate to use in drawing a new district?
Sara Walsh?
Well, I can just say I've never been on that committee. I don't envy the people that are. I know it's got to take a lot of thought. And my understanding is, though, that it's made up of a committee, and the individuals that will be on there will look at a lot of different things. So honestly, I just say share.
That's my question. What are the other factors that are going to be looked at, or that you think are appropriate to look at?
Well, that's really great. Like I said, that's not something that I've served on before. I'm sure that they look at a lot of things. What I would say is, if you've got some ideas, please share those with any one of us or whoever your representative is, and that they can take that into consideration. If there's a bill, I wasn't aware there was a bill that we're voting on or in the House. So,
I do want to address my question to Chuck, and as the chair of the subcommittee for the preservation of the Second Amendment, please tell us if any of the 26 gun bills filed to date will address parental responsibility for scenarios such as occurred last week when a 12-year-old brought a loaded weapon to school and it unfortunately discharged, injuring two.
Okay.
I'm happy to hear from everybody else on this too.
Anybody else who wants to answer, fine. She's addressed it to Representative Bass. Anybody else on the panel want to address that same question? Speak now.
And I'm asking this to all of you. If the bill that requires all marriage be performed in churches comes up for a House vote, how will you vote and why?
All right. We need to go to Sara Walsh for the first one on this one.
is this a bill? I'm sorry that you're saying that is in the House or
It's in the paper tonight or this morning, excuse me. And it said, what I read is that all marriages should be performed in a church by a minister, a priest, whatever. And all other marriages would be considered civil unions, and it's aimed specifically at the LGBT community.
I'll just say I haven't read that, and it's not been before any of the committees that I've been on. So, I mean, I do know right now, I mean, you can get married in a courthouse or different places. It sounds like you're saying that this bill would change that.
So, everybody.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the specifics of it. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that one. It didn't come before budget, I'll tell you that.
All right.
And I have a question about tax policy, but there's an assumption to my question first. So if our jobs collectively, yours as our representatives and ours as citizens, is to have a state in good repair, whether we're talking about our educational system or roads or whatever. So what does the new federal tax law change about increasing the standard deduction, which carries over to Missouri? What does that do to our duty to keep our state in good repair? And the second part of that is, I understand the governor wants to look at the federal tax exemption or deduction and take that away in Missouri, which presumably would raise some revenue. So when you look at both of those, with both of those coming, how do we keep our state in good repair by raising enough revenue to do that?
Thank you.
Sara Walsh.
So just real quickly, so yes, there are a lot of estimates. We don't have a lot of hard numbers on budget committee yet on that, but we will. I will say just to the budget committee, I've been very impressed by the individuals on the budget committee and how everyone's really working together, asking good questions. So you've got a really good committee. They're a bipartisan committee, really working for Missourians. To speak to the speaking to the president's tax cut, I'll say in my district, I've had a lot of positive feedback from individuals that are very excited to get more money back into their own pockets, as well as the fact that I believe I think Walmart was raised their wage for employees, and they're one of the top employers in Missouri. So again, that all comes back to Missourians as well, for those of you that are concerned with wages and with those going up, which is very important. But that's a private decision they're making because they're getting it back. So thank you very much.
I just wanted to ask if any of the iterations of the Missouri Non-Discrimination Act, there were 3 that I saw floating around, come to a vote. Will you support protecting the LGBT community from discrimination, and why?
Thank you. You got that to take home tonight, folks. If you don't remember anything else, you're going to remember that one. Sara Walsh?
I don't think I can follow that up. I got to leave that there.
That's it? All right.
My question has to do with the revenue, because we've talked a lot about some of the issues that require more money. And there's one way to get more money, and that's to raise taxes. But the voters in Missouri have repeatedly made it clear that they really don't want higher taxes. So I was wondering what ideas you have. Yeah, you said there was some revenue stream going out that it was perhaps fraudulent, or that we need to clean that up. But are there any ideas that you have for areas where we could cut back on spending rather than raising taxes in order to meet the needs of our state?
Okay, Sara Walsh.
I think Budget Chair Fitzpatrick's doing a fabulous job. He's very savvy and looking at the numbers and finding good ways as we do go through these agency books. Other thing is, since I've worked for the State Auditor's Office in the past under Tom Schweik, I will say that many times state agencies, when there are findings that the State Auditor's Office has, the state agencies don't take those into consideration. They kind of sometimes will excuse those and things like that. So sometimes there's recommendations that are good. And so I think a better focus, or any ways I'd be supportive of, to put kind of some more teeth into the state auditor findings, so that way the state agencies can improve and we can do more with money, and again, do more with less.
Penalty for killing dogs, police dogs.
Yay or nay, folks?
I'll jump in on that.
All right, we got Sara Walsh. She's going to tackle this one for us.
Thanks for that question. Sorry, my mic wasn't on for some reason. Thanks for that question. Yes, she's talking about House Bill 1649, Champ's Law. That bill was filed by Representative Robert Cornejo, and I co-sponsored that bill. How that originated was a Cass County police dog was stabbed in the neck, and it was only a misdemeanor that was published by up to 15 days in jail and a fine of $700. Under this proposed new law, the penalty could be considerably harsher, which would be up to 1 year in jail and a fine of $2,000. And if that attack kills or incapacitates the police dog, the person would be facing at least 3 and possibly 10 years behind bars. So I have a sheriff in my district, Tony Wheatley from Montauk County, and he wrote me a very passionate letter. They raised in one day $8,000 to bring a second canine in that district. They are cracking down on crime and drugs in Montauk County, and those dogs, the kids in the district love them. They're family, and so I love dogs. I adopted a dog from Second Chance Shelter, and I just think it's very important, again, for our men and women in law enforcement, the bond that is between them and their dogs, and I support that.
We'll end with that. I want to thank again the Columbia Public Library, the League of Women Voters, and also Sam Griffin and Brian Wilson. And to our audience on KFR, you've been listening to the Legislative Forum from the Friends Room in the Columbia Public Library. We'll resume regular programming.